Penguin Random House Audio presents Fonseca, a novel by Jessica Francis Kane. Read for you by Cerris Morgan-Moyer, with Christine Rendel and Nicholas Guy Smith, and with a note read by the author. For Mitchell, who always knew what Fonseca meant. Unfortunate are the adventures which are never narrated. Penelope Fitzgerald. November. Day of the Dead. In 1952, November 2nd fell on a Sunday, and that afternoon a mother and son stood in front of the Delaney house in Fonseca, Mexico, poised to knock. They had traveled a long way, were quite stunned, mainly from the last leg of their journey through the American South, and now it was late afternoon, the day after the day they were supposed to have arrived. The season was warm, and in the square behind them people were wearing calaveras, and the air smelled of smoke and marigolds. In the distance, and also quite nearby, they heard the pop and spray of fireworks. A band was playing in the square, the music brassy and bright, punctuated by shouts. It was all very disconcerting, and even though he didn't know who or what was behind the door, the boy wanted to go inside. In all his 6 years, he had never entered a house that did not have someone making, or about to make, tea. But his mother would not knock.
"This isn't a holiday,"
Valpy said, turning to sit down on the front step. A young woman passed, chewing a large sugar calavera with the name Pedro across the forehead. She was sobbing and laughing at the same time. Penelope sat down next to him. "How can you tell?"
"I've never had new clothes for a holiday before."
"That's not true. What about your bathing costume last summer?" He didn't say anything. They both knew bathing costumes didn't count.
"And this is a very strange house."
The gray stone with wood shutters in the French style was at odds with all the buildings around it, every one stucco in the colors of sunset. The house stood right up against the pavement, 3 gabled sections around a shallow front courtyard. 5 steps led up from the front wall to what looked like the door of a castle keep, old oak with iron bolts and bars. Above and to the left was a heavy rounded balcony that reminded Penelope of a pulpit. There were several tall chimneys, 2 dormers, and a number of mullioned windows in various sizes, all shuttered. Old, twisted pecan trees on the street further darkened the front.
"Yes, but there's nothing to be afraid of,"
Penelope said. This was an error. Valpy had not said he was afraid, and now Penelope saw that he was looking at the trees and the heavy little balcony and wondering if he should be.
"We were invited,"
she reminded him quickly.
"But why were we invited?"
"The Delaneys are old friends."
"But why do they want to see us?"
Later, when the house in Southwold was emptied, and even later when their houseboat Grace went down, Penelope would remember this moment on the step of the house in Fonseca. Everyone has a point to which the mind reverts naturally when it is left on its own. This was hers. "It's hard to explain," she said. This was not untrue. The Delaneys, 2 wealthy old women, had written to Penelope more than half a year ago to say they were alone in the world, all their relations in Ireland were gone, and because of some distant friendship between their families, they hoped to meet Valpy. Indeed, if Penelope had understood their letters correctly, they suggested they might leave him all their money. This possibility was tantalizing for a number of very pressing reasons. She stood and knocked quickly, pecan shells cracking underfoot. "Dios mío, two of you!" the housekeeper exclaimed, pulling open the heavy door. "Have you just come from the bus?" She was about 50, with wide, bare arms under a red apron. Her dark hair was pulled into a middle part, the length of it braided and wound on top of her head, a yellow marigold tucked behind one ear, heavy cheeks flushed under blue eyes. Penelope, who was not particularly tall, towered over her. Valpy bravely cleared his throat.
Yes, but first we were on the Queen Mary, then the bus. It was a long and terrible ride. Actually, first we were on a train, but that wasn't part of the adventure because it was still in England.
That sounds right. Very few adventures begin and end in England. Where was the boat's port of call?
New York,
Valpy answered. Good. One of you can take the bus back there. She took Valpy's hand, suggesting Penelope would be the one returning. Penelope countered with a hand to Valpy's shoulder. But I notified Doña Elena that we were both coming. I don't remember that letter. Yet you know it was a letter. How else would you have told her? I might have sent a telegram. Or phoned. The housekeeper narrowed her eyes. Too expensive. She adjusted the marigold behind her ear. We expected you yesterday. I'm sorry. We were delayed in San Antonio.
That was the terrible part,
Valpy said. The housekeeper nodded as if she understood, but how could she have known what happened? The three stood on the doorstep, seemingly at an impasse. Finally, Penelope said, This is ridiculous. He's only 6 years old. He never could have made this journey alone. Why? The housekeeper said, scrutinizing Valpy. Is there something wrong with him? Valpy shook his head. Of course not, Penelope said. But it would be a very long journey for so young a child. How far is it? Valpy knew the exact mileage from the front door of their house, Chestnut Lodge, Hampstead, London, to the doorstep where they were standing in Zona Centro, Fonseca, Mexico. That is far, the housekeeper said. He should be with his mother. Penelope was relieved. Now we agree. I am his mother. The housekeeper sighed. She stepped backward, pulling the door with her. I am Sheila. Welcome to Mirando. Penelope didn't move. I thought this was the Delaney house. Yes, come in. It was an inauspicious, topsy-turvy start, and Penelope never forgot it. The large wood-paneled front hall was decorated for the holiday with potted marigolds lining both sides of the wide center staircase. These were mostly orange threaded with darker orange, and a few yellow here and there. They must have just been watered, for the smell of damp soil filled the hall. Convivial sounds came from the floor above, and there was opera playing somewhere.
Are you having a party?
Valpy looked hopeful for the first time since they'd knocked. No, Chela said. Those people are here just like you. The Doñas are in the cemetery. Leave your trunk for Jesus. Chela looked at Valpy and then spelled for his benefit. That's J-E-S-U-S. He will bring it up. Penelope was troubled by some of this information, and Valpy was wide-eyed, but there was no time for questions. Chela moved fast for one so round around the middle. At the top of the staircase, she turned left, then right to the bottom of a smaller staircase. She took this to the third floor and turned right again down a tunnel.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?